Hey, welcome back, Levelin Up Nation. It is your language nerd, Brigham Blackham. So grateful to be here. Today, I have my friend Krista. I was just on her podcast this last week, and I said, you know what? I think it would be great if we brought you on. You got to share a little bit of your experience because we are co-authors in a wonderful project. It is called Heal to be Healed. And I had this balloon that I popped up. I blew up earlier. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I need to find it. Oh, I lost it. It's here somewhere. Oh, I lost it. Shoot. Where did that balloon go? It's all right. Guys, I will find it here during this conversation. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it. Heal to be healed. Okay, perfect. We're going to have some fun today. As we are setting up this conversation, this is going to be all about how we heal through conversation. Every single one of us have opportunities to transform through our story. To be able to have fun is one thing, but to be able to take some of those traumas, the dramas, the difficulties in our life, and reframe them by the language we use, to reframe them by the story that we tell, it makes such a huge impact. And I'm so grateful to have Krista on today. Welcome to the call, and tell us a little bit about your background. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, I am so excited to be here. I have so much fun when we have our conversations. My name is Krista Fee, as Brigham said, and I am the executive director of a 501c3 organization, Battle to Be, and Rise Up Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute. And I am one of those people that studies everything and gets super involved in learning about the brain and human behavior and the entire healing process from a historical Eastern and Western perspective. So I have a ton of resources in my toolbox, and I just think human beings and our processes are extraordinarily fascinating.
Love it. I'm excited to deal with some of these different experiences that you've had, share some of your stories, and talk about how you've been able to create healing through conversation. Let's first start with this as our main topic. We're talking about healing conversations. What is an example that comes to mind when you're talking about people that have had trauma? Because this is the majority of your podcast, is helping people process things, giving them tools to overcome trauma. What are some of the experiences you've had with having these healing conversations?
I think we have a natural knowledge. We have a natural understanding that speaking our truth and telling our story is healing for us.
Mm-hmm.
The EMDR, the only, one of two acceptable, scientifically validated ways to heal post-traumatic stress disorder, is story-based. It's a process of speaking your story and detaching the emotional layer away from what you're experiencing. So science has validated the value of speaking our story. And neuroscience is amazing stuff. Our brains, our memories are actually multifaceted. And when we pull up a memory, we change it, which is, of course, why observing a crime, we might not be the best witnesses, right? Because we change things every time we pull it up. The shirt might turn blue instead of red or whatever. So we literally can transform our memories of our experiences into something completely different. And in that, we process our emotions differently. So we don't have to become our stories. We don't have to become those memories. We have the opportunity to transform how we feel about them and what they mean to us.
That's such a great point. I have been studying neuro-linguistic programming for quite a while, and I'm fascinated that some people will remember a trauma and intentionally try and make it more and more dark through the language that they choose. When if you shifted the words that you use to describe your experience, your world shifts, especially when you're talking about memories. Guys, I think anytime we are learning new things about storytelling, you have the opportunity to say, is this going to be a story that helps me or hinders me? If you're replaying a really negative story in your head, there's a good chance that it's not serving you. So Krista, let's talk about how people reprogram those stories, how they desensitize some of the traumas so that they can now take those experiences that they've had and have it become fuel instead of detrimental.
Ooh, I can give you a really fun framework that we use in the Right to Heal program. We almost always start our telling of our story with the victim and the villain. We tell our story from a victim standpoint of this person did this to me, right? And to keep it really simplistic, when we begin to heal, we move to the hero and the villain. You become the hero in your own story. You're overcoming it. The villain no longer has power over you. But that's still not healed because we're still giving that villain power and we're still naming that villain as a part of our story. And when we get to that healed place, that villain disappears. And it literally just becomes, this is my story. I experienced this thing and this is what I took from it. And now I am my own story. The villain no longer has a role in the way that I speak my truth.
This is a really great way to think about this, because if you are always giving so much weight to the villain, it makes it so that you have that antagonist. And when you share your story in a way that allows you to just say, this is what happened, it can feel like you're desensitizing that story. I think that's a very useful way to go about it. Thank you so much for sharing. One of the ways I've found, I actually brought this up on your podcast, that's really valuable is using something called the triad and the reverse triad. We use this in the Final Percent Network. And the reason it's so valuable is when you are getting into your physicality, the language that you use or the words that you choose, and the focus that you have, that's your triad. What you focus on is at top. The language or the words that you use is at the bottom right of the triangle. And then down here is your physiology. That's that triangle. This is an experience. Every single one of us will have an experience today that's good or bad. And depending on what you focus on during that experience will create language around it. And that language will impact your physiology. Earlier, we were going to have a panel of 5 people on here, and we did have it. And it was actually a really great conversation. Oh, I had so much fun. But here's the thing, guys. I didn't hit go live. And I was like, oh, this is bad. And it's like, wait a second. This is great because now I get to have a one-on-one conversation with Krista. She's very prepared. And we always have really great conversations when we banter back and forth. But I took something that was a potential lemon and turned it into lemonade. And it's all through the way you rephrase it. This is now an opportunity instead of a failure. Isn't that exciting? Every single one of us. Now in my body, I actually feel excited because now I get to have a conversation with Krista individually, which is amazing. And we'll still have another one in the future with that panel. But I don't want to put the stress on anybody else. So thank you so much, Krista, for being here. And I would love to get your insight on this idea of the triad. What you have as far as your focus and then the language and your physiological response or how your body responds to things.
In my work, I think I have something similar. We call it a feedback loop, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So you have your thoughts, you have your brain and what it's doing, and then you have your physiology, and then you have the words that you're speaking into truth. Mm-hmm. And it's a circle, and in that circle, any one of those can be the catalyst to change all of those. So we can begin with a breath. We can calm our nervous system. We can stabilize our body. And that will change the thought process. That will change the physiology. That will change the words that we speak. Or we can change the words that we're speaking, and that will change the others, right? So it doesn't matter where you start on the loop. Everybody's going to have their preference. And they all influence each other all the time. And that's really just your panic response. That's really just your nervous system reaction to stress and fear and what it perceives to be a threat, which isn't necessarily a threat. It's what it believes to be a threat because of all of the experiences you've had in the past. And so much of that programming, you mentioned neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm a hypnotist and certified in neuro-linguistic programming as well. And that's a thing we don't get to talk about very much because the respect in the general population for the power of hypnosis and for the value of NLP is kind of minimal. A lot of people go, "Oh, that's woo-woo stuff," "Oh, that's not science," right? But it's been around forever. It's been a practice forever. And when we look at generations past and how they processed information, the evidence is long-standing. It was used, hypnotherapy was first used to treat post-traumatic stress disorder very successfully after World War II. So the evidence is there.
Mhm.
It just doesn't, you can't write a prescription for it, and nobody makes money on it. So it's not recognized as an appropriate healing methodology.
Let me add this as well, because hypnosis is such a useful technique. It is just the power of suggestion. If you get someone in a state that has been slightly altered so that they can be more suggestible to do what they want to do, and you create options for them, that's hypnosis. That's one of my favorite definitions of it. This is something that is so powerful. Any coach or mentor, speaker, you think about it, if you are doing your job well, you are helping people get into an altered state or a form of hypnosis. If you're a great actor, guess what you're doing? You are taking someone through a cathartic experience, having that purging of emotions. You've heard this word on this podcast before. It is an altered state. So you are hypnotizing, in one respect, your audience. If you say, wow, they are using hypnotic language, that's not necessarily doing the little thing back and forth. Actually, I've never seen anyone do that in real life. That seems kind of ridiculous. The whole idea is, how do you help someone get into a state of being suggestible? So, Chris, let's actually talk about that for a minute, because this is something that is essential to healing, being able to alter your state. Because when you're in an altered state, there is a shift that happens. And because you're in that different state, you can look at things in a different way. It's almost like zooming out from your subject in film, or zooming in. You have all these different things, associations and disassociations. So let's talk about how hypnosis works and give the simplified version, because I know I've studied this a long time. Other people like yourself have studied it a long time. Let's keep it relatively simple.
Our subconscious mind or unconscious mind, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't work with language quite the way that our conscious mind works with language. So the easy answer to this is, first, establish trust and safety. You have to be able to feel safe in the presence of the person that you're working with for hypnosis. If you do not feel safe, there's no way that you're going to access that part of yourself.
It's like
so
a barrier.
Relaxation.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and relaxation takes many forms. Like, I'm an Ericksonian person, so that's a permissive form of hypnosis. I never tell you anything. I ask you, and I invite you, and I give you options. And what that might look like and every client's different. So, I mean, it's visualization. We might use a staircase in simplistic terms. Walk down a staircase, visualize opening the door. What's on the other side of the door? It's very, very simple and very, very visual and very storytelling. It's metaphorical, because your unconscious, that part of you that's underneath, is not literal. It's conceptual.
Yeah.
So it really is visualization and storytelling.
Yeah. One of the things that pops into my head when we're talking about this, we're getting to Ericksonian patterns. You think about how he did it. It was very I want to say it's not content specific. It was very generalized, and you don't have to know the content that you're helping someone work through. You just need to give them the framework that they can work through their own challenges. It's just like the physician is not the one that is actually doing the healing. It's your body. What you do is you put in the structure that needs to be there so that your body can heal itself. Our minds are amazing. And as we have the right language and we use the right focus, and we get in that physical state that we can do something about it, suddenly we can actually heal ourselves. It's crazy. It's so cool. I absolutely love this methodology. One of the things I've discovered, because I'm also not just in the form of general hypnosis, but I also believe in Christ. I think that he's the master healer. And as soon as you can step into that, suddenly there is another element of being able to process things. So I don't know if you bring in spirituality into your practice at all, but how do you deal with people that are either not of your faith or someone that doesn't have a huge spiritual base? Because for me, spiritual healing comes through Christ. Other people will have a different framework that they work off of. So let's talk about that for a minute.
The benefit, I do work with a lot of military and a lot of first responders, and oftentimes religion is forced forced upon them in all the healing resources that they have access to. So for many of them, speaking about religion can be a negative, which creates an opportunity to open the door to an awareness that the biggest value of spirituality, whatever that looks like for you, whatever your religion, whatever your higher being, whatever you're that which is outside of myself, whatever that is, in the healing prospect, it looks like you already understand allowing. You already understand the concept of putting your hands up and saying, I'm going to relax into this. I'm going to just be here for what happens. And I'm going to allow healing to come into me. I'm going to allow my body to do what it's naturally designed to do. I'm going to allow my brain to do what it's naturally designed to do. We are programmed to heal ourselves. Now, if that's divine, for some people, they haven't made that connection and that's not what their belief system is, but it doesn't have to be to access the rewards of that. So it does, people who have a belief in God have an easier process of taking that first step and sinking in and going, I can trust, I can allow, because healing's going to happen. Others who don't have a spirituality or a spiritual belief have to find that trust in another way. They have to find that ability to relax and allow in another way.
That's a great point. I think trust is just simply said, allowing someone the potential to hurt you and knowing that they won't. Anytime that we have a safe space, just like what we've created here in this conversation, we can share our insights, we can share our experiences, and actually voicing those experiences will start that healing process. But there are times, guys, where if you think you're having a healing conversation, but all you're doing is opening up an old wound. I've been in conversations like this, and it's frustrating to see someone you thought was doing well, and then they're like, let me see if I can dig this back up. And then they actually recreate trauma that's almost worse than it was in the first place because they flip their story. Let's talk about that. How do you avoid that type of behavior? Because it is rampant when you are talking about gossip or you're talking about taking offense to what other people say. Let's go there for a minute.
Venting is useful. It is only useful in the moment of high emotion. After the initial high emotion ends, so I mean, literally saying right after an event, venting is okay. Venting is useful. 3 days later, venting is no longer useful. It's now time to, again, everything is a framework that keeps it really simple. When you have an issue that you want to resolve, that you want to change the way you feel about, you have to look at it really simply. These are the facts. This is what happened. These are my feelings about the facts, right? And what are those feelings? How might those feelings change the way I respond to those facts, right? Where are my biases? Where are my challenges here? Where are the things I might need to look at? And then you go to, what are my options? What can I actually do to resolve my feelings about this? What can I do to resolve the facts? I want to change the facts, or I can't change the facts. One of those two is true. If you're uncomfortable, one of those two is true. If I can't change the facts, how can I release them and get over them? And it's not something that's in my sphere of influence. It's not something that I can control. How do I let it go? What are my options? If it is something that I can change, what are my options to change it? And then simply, okay, what action am I going to take? Because a conversation without action is useless. It's empty. There's no point. If you're going to complain about something, if you're not looking at your options and taking action, you just wasted your breath. You just reinforced the negative message that you're telling yourself in that NLP model that we were talking about earlier. Every time you say the negative, you're reinforcing it. And we have a negative bias anyway. So 10 negatives is a whole day's worth of work to change it, because for every one negative it takes at least, and the number keeps growing over time as they're doing science, the number of positive statements it takes to redirect a negative statement is increasing over time. So every one of those negatives is super powerful, and every one of those positive reframes has less power. And we need to really magnify intentionally those positives to get rid of those negatives. So if you're not taking action, if you're not looking for solutions in every single complaint conversation, you're digging yourself a hole.
It's beautiful. Let's shift the transition really quick, just for a moment, into this framework that I bring up all the time. It's the story framework. This is something that every single one of us can use. And this is, if you want to use neurolinguistic programming, this is a way that you can actually do it without having to be a huge practitioner. You focus on what is significant. You talked about, well, what are the circumstances here? What are the facts that I want to shift? If you can focus on the significant elements of your story, the things that you have control over, and then you say, how can I make this make sense for what I want out of life? You translate it in a way, or you reassociate it in a way that you want that to happen for you. And then you have an objective that you focus on. You say, this is what I want out of this scenario. You can reframe the way that you think about your story based on what you want instead of what you don't want. Because if you focus so much on what you don't want, often you run into it. I was given this example. My daughter, she's learning how to ride the bike right now. And I keep saying, stop looking at the ground. And if I say that, she looks at the ground. So I have to say, right, look in front of you. Look where you want to go. That little shift in how you coach will make it so they get going in the right direction. And then you can relive those experiences, guys. This is the R in the story framework. You relive the experience the way that you want to, not the way that you didn't want to. And then you have a commitment that, yes, I will do X, Y, or Z based on it. This is that framework. And I find so many different ways that you can use this, not just in making sure your stories are compelling, unforgettable, and engaging on and off stage, but this is something that you can do to process your pain and turn it into fuel. So what's your thoughts on this? This is the second exposure you've had to this, Krista. I'd love your thoughts on how you can use this framework. Go ahead.
Oh, I love this framework, and I love that it's catchy because, people love things that they can remember. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely correct. Like, you can apply so many of these frameworks that we use are not limited to trauma. They're not limited to this major thing in our life. They're literally things that we practice and live every day. It pops into your head the second that you have a challenge, a tiny challenge, a big challenge. It doesn't even matter. It just becomes your checklist. It just becomes your reference point for, how do I respond to this? Oh, well, check, 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 check. Now I have an action that I can take. Now I have what I want more, what would be better. And when we click into that, what would be better, or what would I rather have, it's very easy to do that future self. It's very easy to picture yourself with that outcome. It's very easy to go, what are the steps it's going to take to get to that outcome? For many of you, you've heard, you don't know this neuro-linguistic programming language, but you've heard set a goal, right? You've heard set a goal and take tiny steps to get to that goal. That's all we're talking about here. Just using different frames and different language to get to the same result. What do you want? How are you going to get there? Let's focus on where you're going instead of where you are, so you don't get stuck.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, if you're just tuning in right now, guys, I want to make sure that you understand this. We are focusing in on healing conversations. And one of the biggest values that I find with using different language to talk about things and different stories is, as you find different ways to look at things, those perspective shifts will make it more real. There's an expression in Mandarin, Mangren Mo Xiang. Mangren are blind people, Mo is to touch, and then Xiang is an elephant. You may have heard this old parable. It's 2,000 plus year old parable. But everyone had their own conceptualization of what the elephant was because they were blind. One was touching the end of the elephant. Like, oh, I think it's a rope. And one was touching the tree trunk like legs, and like, oh no, this is more like a tree. And then one was sitting on top. He's like, oh, this is like a really hard rug almost. And there's like little thin bits of hair. Every single one of us, as we find different perspectives, eventually the truth will set us free when you see the entire picture. I'm not saying I have the picture. I'm not saying Krista has the picture, but as you hear these different perspectives, you will be able to find for yourself what actual truth is, because truth is the same today, yesterday, and forever. Healing is something that follows natural law. So check this out. This is something that's really neat. Chen yu. Chen is one of my favorite words when it has to do in Mandarin. Heal is what this word means if you just look at it at the surface. But if you break this word apart, you have sickness on the top, and then you have whole on the bottom. To be made whole, you have to be able to remove the sickness. This is such an interesting idea. And it's a progression. It's something that happens like a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit. That's what the second one means. So you have a slow progression and you remove the sickness. As soon as you're healed, one of those trauma responses that sometimes people have is, oh, I'm going to go dig up that bad story and then put it back on myself because I'm healed. It's kind of like me taking a scar that I got from biking years ago. Like, I'm going to just get a pick and just pick at it until it's bleeding again. And that's not helpful. But as soon as you take your story and say, you know what, now I have a scar, I'm not going to be digging at it, but I'm going to share how I got it so that you have a warning so you don't get that. Or you can say, hey, here's an example that I had from my life of something that was amazing. I'm going to share this so that you can now use that story to inspire you to do similar things. Let's talk about this. What does healing mean to you, Krista? You've got a huge background in trauma response. What does healing mean to you? Define it for our audience.
Oof. Healing is really one of those intangible words, only because it's a process. There's not a final destination. We never end the process of healing because each new day brings new opportunities, new wounds, new experiences, new reactions. Like, healing is really about self-awareness. It's really about claiming our own identity. It's really about owning our experiences as our own and taking that accountability for what we are putting out into the world. Healing is becoming that which we are meant to be without allowing the chains of our experiences to limit and restrict that expression of ourselves.
Beautiful.
That might have been complicated, but
that's all right. That's all right. I love it. That's really beautiful. Healing can come in so many different forms, and it's something that is a process. I totally agree with that. And just like when you talk about any ing word in English at all, that's a progressive form of the verb. It means you have to be progressing, doing something. I'm swimming, I'm thinking. You're in the act of doing it. Healing is a process. Now, when someone says, well, I'm healed, I'm done, it makes you think, well, you might be today, but what if something comes up tomorrow? Then you get to go back to the process. I wanted to talk just for a few minutes about relationships, because a lot of times the most traumatic experiences that we have come through relationships. And I'm not even just talking about relationships that are intimate relationships of a romantic partner. These can be family relationships. This can be relationships with our community. So I've got a quote here. This came from a book that I thought was phenomenal. I'm still in the middle of it. It's called The Art of Raising Significant Children by Dan Clark. It says, soulmates are fiction and an illusion. Almost any good man and any good woman can have happiness and a successful marriage if both are willing to pay the price. What's your thoughts on this? Because a lot of times people are thinking, oh, I have to have the soulmate. I'm waiting for the one, instead of I'm working on me to become the one for somebody else. I want to hear your thoughts.
So I have a program, Rise Up Relationship Reset, and Rise Up is my brand. And the R in Rise Up, every one of those letters stands for a necessary piece of life wholeness, right? And relationship is the first one for a reason. And in relationship, we're not just looking at relationship with others, we're looking at our relationship with ourselves first.
Mhm.
And if they always say, you can't love someone until you love yourself. Well, that's kind of vague in general, but the reality is that if you don't know who you are and what you stand for and have a really strong self identity, and identity work is huge. Like there are people that work on their identity forever and never quite grasp how powerful identity is. When we have our personal identity and our partner is strong in their identity, I absolutely agree that anyone who is putting their best self out into the world each and every day,
Mm-hmm.
two people in that mindset, two people in that condition, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
are capable of having a beautiful relationship, because in that you're able to express clearly and consistently what you want, what you need, and what is valuable to you. You have a North Star. And if two people have the same North Star and are going in the same direction, conflict doesn't happen. There's very little issue when you and I are on the highway next to each other, train tracks, right? We're on train tracks and there's a consistent straight line. There's not that variance. There's no conflict. So if there's no conflict, it's easy to love you. It's easy to be with you and to create an environment of safety. And safety is the first element of love. Trust, safety, respect. And then fun, right? If we
Yeah, I
can
like that.
create trust, safety, respect, and enjoyment, we have a beautiful, loving relationship that is the perfect environment to raise children. But all four of those have to be there. And we have to be clear in our identity and heading in the same direction. It's when we're not headed in the same direction, when we're on a highway in opposite lanes, we have conflict. So it's about how can I put my best self out into the world today? And how can I put my best self into my relationship? And if you have that, you have a beautiful relationship, because you have communication, because you have trust, because you have respect, because you have safety, because you have the opportunities to enjoy each other's presence and to create beautiful moments.
That's a great point. One of the things that comes up to mind for me is this week is the temple open house here in Grand Junction. And in the celestial room, there are these two mirrors that are slightly tilted towards each other. And it's a beautiful thing to stand in those mirrors, and you can see eternity in one side going forward, and you can look behind you and eternity is going behind you. It represents all of the people that came before you and all the people that will come after you with that relationship. We believe in my religion that we aren't just married for time, it's for time and all eternity. And it can only happen with the priesthood in the right place in a temple. You think about that type of commitment, it's not a until death do us part, it's a forever, like Sandra, forever, you know what I'm talking about? That type of idea of I am 100% committed to you, I chose you, that's a lot more powerful than, well, the universe told me you're the one. Wait a second. I believe in choice. I think most people believe in that free agency. We want to choose our love, and then we love our choice. So just like what you were saying, we want to have that same directionality. And as we move together, when conflicts arise because one of us starts to shift and we didn't have the same direction for a time, we say, well, how do we get back on the same track? How do we make sure that we are going in the same direction and we're not pulling against each other? Because that tug of war does happen when we aren't focused on doing what's best for our whole family rather than us individually. This is something my mission president brought up. I'm going to share this for just a moment. My very last day in Taiwan with my mission president, we had this interview and he said, so you're going to marry this girl that you've been writing for the last 2 years? And I was like, if she'll let me. So my thought was, I had built this beautiful relationships. We were best friends. We were pen pals. And on my way back, he said this one thing. He said, just make sure that you look for this one trait. Make sure you find someone that is selfless. As you are selfless and you attract people that are selfless, They'll start to serve not because they have to, but because they want to. They'll want to be in the relationship not because they have to, but because they choose to. And being selfless makes all the difference. And if someone is inherently selfish, that's that natural man, the thing that probably most of us at the core are relatively selfish, and we have to develop that selfless nature. I found it in spades with my wife. She's selfless. She is willing to do things that she knew were for the betterment of not just our relationship, but for the world. I think selflessness is so key in a great relationship. So we brought up a lot of things there. What are some of the thoughts that came to your mind about relationships that we haven't brought up yet as far as healing conversations go?
I think you are spot on with the selflessness aspect. I've worked with hundreds of couples, and the couples that don't make it, even despite going through the program, the couples that don't make it, it is because one or both parties they fall high on the narcissistic trait scale, which basically means they're selfish in some way, shape, or form to an extreme, right?
Yeah.
And in that, they're unable to be flexible. They're unable to see their partner's perspective, and they're unable to focus on the best interests of where we're going. They're focused on, what am I getting out of this right now? And I'm not getting enough, and I'm not being served, and I'm not. And if the language that you get right away is what my partner is doing wrong, instead of how can I be a better wife or husband, it's a clear indicator that we're going to have struggles. Like, I can tell the first interview with a couple whether I feel like they're going to really stick it out and they're going to actually thrive, or whether it's going to be a like fight to the death, right? Because it's just a slow death spiral. If you're not gonna work, you're not gonna work, and it might take you years of struggle and torturing each other and all of that. It's really in those first few minutes of a conversation where I can hear your, like, the way that you speak about the problems in your relationship. And if it's all about what my partner is doing wrong, and they're not loving me, and they're not giving me this, and they're not doing that, and they're not doing this, and if I can turn to you and say, and what's your piece in that? What are you not giving? And they can't answer that question immediately with, I could do this better, and I could do this better, and I understand that I'm like missing on this level. If there is no accountability and it's all about blame, I already know what the results are going to be, because that person is usually, very seldom, able to get to a place of that generosity. You are, or you are not. It is a personality, and it is a way you live in it's not just in your relationships, it's where you live in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And a really cute, fun note on what you said. My husband and I, we have been together. We've been married for 15 years. We've been together for almost 20. And everybody looks at us and says, how do we get to be that couple, right? And the reason that we have the love that we have this beautiful relationship that people can see from a mile away, the way that we look each other, the way that we talk to each other, the way that we engage in activities, the way that we support each other in our dreams and our visions and our hopes and what we're trying to build. Our wedding vows, we wrote ourselves. And our wedding vows said, in perfect love and perfect trust in this life and the next into eternity.
Cute.
And we live that every day. He is my partner. I am his partner. And we are partners and equals. And we create our future together. And we talk about everything. We talk all the time. We enjoy our time together. We literally want to spend time together. And that's a big thing. Like, are you excited when your partner's coming home from work? Do you actually want to be with them? Is that your best friend? Because the person you live every moment with should be your best friend.
This is something that comes top of mind for me as you're building a relationship. It comes down to guanxi, which is your connection. Do you force connections, or do you find connections? If you've ever been out of the country and had a different outlet and tried to put an American outlet plug in there, doesn't work very well, guys. You sometimes need to have an adapter you find the right connection, and then you can get that to fit in there. Very similarly, if you don't have the right language that you're using with your spouse, you might just need one of those universal adapters to plug in your thought. And then you're like, all right, now I need to run this through what I think she needs. Oh, this is the language she needs me to listen. She needs me to actually understand what she's talking about. That's what I'm going to tune this to. And then when you plug in, you can actually be connected. And you can't force a connection. Otherwise you break the outlet. Kind of a random analogy, but this is all about the language that we use. A lot of those metaphors, a lot of these frameworks, it's not just cutesy. It is intentionality. And it's realizing, you know what, there's probably a better way to phrase this. There's probably another way to say this. There's probably another way to listen. Most of the time, if you just zip it, that's only one way to listen. There are other ways to make sure you check in. And I'm not the relationship guy, but I definitely am always working on my relationship. I've got 13 years of a beautiful relationship, and I got eternity to figure it out. But I am so stoked to be with my wife too. So Krista, I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you. We've had a little bit of a healing conversation today. And how do people not only get this book, but hear a little bit more about you?
I am an open book. I'm available on every single social media platform. Krista Phoenix Fee on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. Or you can look up the 501c3 nonprofit. It is more focused on military and first responders and critical incident crisis. Or you can look up Rise Up Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute. All are just.org, riseupphoenix.org, battle2be.org. And Rise Up Phoenix Trauma and Crisis Institute is literally my academic empire. So there's courses on there, there's coaching on there, there's trainings, workshops, all of those things that you can consume. But I have tons of free content. So just, I would say either go on one of the websites and just contact me, because all of the contact forms literally go directly to me, or start consuming my free content and see if I tell you what you needed to know. Ask me a question. I'll tell you anything. I'm a wide open book.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Krista. Guys, she is one of my co-authors in Heal to Be Healed. You definitely want to check out that book. It will be delightful. It's coming out very soon. So keep tuned. Really excited for that project. It's been a blast to get those stories in the hands of more people. And once again, Krista, thank you so much for your insights, for your expertise, and all that you do. So guys, have a great rest of your day. And like I like to say, make sure that you level up your life today in one special way, because you only need to be 1% better every day to make yesterday look like he was just not as good. Today, you get to be the very best version of yourself, and it's okay to just be a little bit better, because that's the only person you're competing against is yourself. Have a great rest of your day, guys. God bless.